Welcome, GR. It's a pleasure to see you, and it's a pleasure to have you here with this conversation that I'm having. And just to say something about you, which is to me is difficult to do it, but I just realized that it's 25 years that we know each other, and you've been a point of reference for my life for very long, and in various ways, and you've done many things, including pastoring, including chaplaincy, including foundations, and going all over the world just helping people and doing stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna say it all, otherwise I pick up all the time just to quote some of the memories that we have together. But I'd like for you to introduce yourself real quick, and then we go into a conversation together about the situation now at hand, please.
Sure. Yeah, all right. Well, my name is John Robert Young, and people call me JR. And I am a retired pastor. I pastored evangelical churches for about 30 years, a little over 30 years. And at that time, I was very involved in reaching out to missionaries and missions around the world. And I was just reminiscing with Davide. It was 1996. I had met Davide's parents. They were over here in the U.S. and they stayed with me and attended a conference. And they said, of course, oh, you have to come and visit us, And basically I said, yeah. I had no interest really in visiting Italy. And but anyway, in 1996, then I went with my music minister. And we visited his aunt, who was a nun, just outside of Rome, and we stayed with her for a week. And then it came up to the Florence area, to Pronto, and visited Davide and we visited your parents, and then we met you. And so that's kind of how we met. And you became our tour guide and took us to all the wineries in Tuscany. And anyway, we became very close and became very good friends. And I would say my definition is that God joined our hearts together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I recall many instances and many times we've been traveling together and doing a lot of things. Now, the reason I like to include your perspective in these interviews is that I've always really saw your perspective being coming from above in many ways, in many situations of my life, and obviously in this instance you are, you have a ranch, you have a winery, you have still some congregation people, you still are in touch with the reality on the ground, and my wonder is, like, how are you guys living this situation, this COVID-19 crisis? How is it going now, and what's your perspective actually on it at this point in time?
Well, someone asked me the other day, how has your life changed in this during this epidemic? And I said it hasn't, because we live, as you know, we live out in the country, out in Sonoma County, Northern California, out in what is called Alexander Valley, and we're surrounded by vineyards, and we live on the family ranch, my wife's parents. She is fourth generation on this land, and so the farming goes on. I mean, the guys are pruning grapes, and then they're thinning the leaves, and the work goes on. And so really nothing has changed out here. We're not entertaining guests. We don't have people come over for dinner. We have, but we don't do that as much. And so there's a little bit of isolation that way, with my wife and I, but it's fine. We get to use Zoom. We on Sunday evenings we visit with our grandchildren, with our daughter and her husband and their children, and so we catch up with everyone, and we kind of know what's going on. So it's not too lonely. But it's different. It's different.
Is there a concern for the future, for things going who knows where, like the uncertainty of what's going on now?
Well, I'd say there probably is in our culture, in our society. I don't entertain that because I don't believe this is a real crisis. I think a lot of it is manufactured.
Mm.
And, you know, I was just reading the other day, I think there was like 38 million cases of flu last year and over 80,000 deaths. We didn't stop life last year, you know, and so I think this is blown out of proportion. I believe a lot of it is political. And I think that I will say socialist, Marxist forces are attempting to close down the US economy, which in January was the greatest economy that the world had ever seen. And 2 months later, it's maybe one of the worst. So I think that that's quite a coincidence. And I think it's also quite a coincidence that as soon as our present president, Donald Trump, as soon as he was elected, first of all, it's coming out now in the media that he was spied on by the government, by the previous administration, had the government forces spy on his campaign. And so you would think that, well, okay, but he got elected anyway against all odds. And so when he became president, one would think that the government, his own government, would stop spying on him, but they didn't. And they continued to spy on the people around him. And this is highly unusual, unprecedented, and it's treason. And there's no other there's not a nice way you can say it. It's treason. So they started, as you know, I'm sure people are aware, the whole Russian collusion fantasy. And they spent, 3 years on this and millions of dollars. And all to find out there was no Russian collusion. Then they did the whole thing with Ukraine, with a telephone call to the president of Ukraine. And they were making a big deal out of that. And so he said, okay, well, here's the transcript. You can see that nothing was done wrong. Then they did the impeachment farce, which there was no grounds for impeachment, no constitutional grounds. And while the social Marxist forces were concentrating on his impeachment, the coronavirus came into our country. They're all asleep at the wheel. And then when the president became aware of it, he did the shutdown. He cut off all travel from China on January 26th, I think it was. And they called him xenophobic. They called him a racist. It's just insane over here. So I'm not saying all that to answer your question. I think this all is a farce. I think it's planned. It's sabotage. And those forces, the Marxists, and remember now, the Chinese government is Marxist. It's a communist government, and they're teaming up with the Marxists over here, the social Marxists, and they're trying to shut down this president because he's not a politician. He's a businessman. He doesn't take any crap off of anybody. And so here's the sad thing is that they will actually ruin our economy and put people out of work and, cause extreme damage to businesses and so on and so forth. They don't care about that. They don't care about the people. They want to get the president.
Now, this is very interesting because however this is, even if it is, a made up story, the repercussions are very real on people and on business.
Oh,
and at least in Italy, we are on our knees economically, in such a way that we've never been before, and so there are real repercussions that we will need to deal with, as we go along on this situation. And so, what do you think is going to happen now that we are facing, this recession basically, and even depression in many areas of the world? What's going to happen, you think?
Well, there's all kinds of predictions, and some, the president feels that because of him, really, he's quite an egotist. But he thinks that he brought a great economy on, and he can pull us out of this. And of course, that will, that will enhance his chances of being reelected in November. So that's a very real possibility that, at the end of this year, the economy will rebound. And I don't know if it'll get back to normal. I think things will forever be changed. All the social distancing and the precautions that people will have to take. But I think eventually, maybe next year sometime, that we get back to normal.
That's good. That's good to know, and that's good to hear, because you're the first one who I'm interviewing, and right out loud says this is a made up situation. This is a blown up story. So I'm quite intrigued, because I really believe that I don't know what to believe, to be honest with you, because now we're dealing with a lot of consequences at this point in time, and I really see some coincidence, as you say, not only in the States, because this might be the perception in the States, but worldwide we're all dealing with this, and it's very interesting to see how terror and fear and restrictions are the response that we're getting for the crisis. And I don't know, I mean, it's really something we will see as we go, if we have the fortune to be alive as it goes on.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying I believe it was contrived, and it was designed to sabotage the United States of America, because this will sound egotistic coming from me, but if the world goes the way America goes, because it's the largest economy, not because it's the best country or anything like that, but it's the largest economy, and so other economies follow what happens in America. They have to. And so this was a very real sabotage of the greatest economy. It doesn't make any difference if it's ours or yours, but the leading economy, they had to sabotage it. Who? The Marxists, I believe, the Chinese Communist Party. They had to sabotage it. They had to bring it down because it was leaving them behind. And the world has to wake up to the fact that the Marxist government in China is out to rule the world. There's no question about it. And the thing that's scary to me is how sympathetic Americans are to Marxist, socialist Marxist ideas. It's like they can't look at Venezuela, for example. And Venezuela was the wealthiest nation in Latin America just a few years ago. And they voted in, or at least it appears they voted in, a Marxist. And of course, in every Marxist country, they become a dictator takes over, disarms people, and then controls everything. And when that happens, the economy tanks. That's what's going to happen to the U.S. if we don't stop it.
It's going to be very interesting, because I know U.S. has been the home of private property, and everybody has guns, and so the only place that somebody could stop anything like that, I'm imagining, would be United States, where people take responsibility of what they want. But that could mean even a civil war or whatever, like the people against the government. I mean, I wouldn't expect something like that to be as strong.
Yeah, you don't like to think about things like that, but these forces, I'll just use that term, they have been for years trying to disarm the Americans. That's the Second Amendment in our Constitution, the right to bear arms, right? And this has been going on for quite a while, but I believe, I don't know how closely you see the news here, but like in the state of Michigan, the governor there has pushed the people to severe limits of control, saying you will break the law if you have more than 3 people or 2 people in a boat, for example. It's crazy stuff. And they're saying, wait, that's not law. The legislature didn't pass that. You made an edict, and we don't have to obey that. So it's coming right up to that point. and they're doing demonstrations. That's going to happen in California as well.
Yeah, yeah. And what concerns me is that these things there go to the extreme, because people will then take it as a resistance matter, and government will push, and hopefully it's not going to happen. But seems that the tension is rising between government and the people, and
Yeah.
that, who knows where that's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's scary. It's a little scary, but the vast majority of people are like lemmings. They're just marching to this cliff. They're obeying like dutiful little citizens. And that is equally as scary to me.
Yeah. So people should think for themselves. That's what you're thinking. That's what the message be like, look at the science and think for yourself and see, where you stand and how far do you want to go in giving your freedom away. That's basically the synthesis.
That's really the issue here in the USA.
Mm-hmm. Well, JR, thank you very much for your contribution. I really appreciate your honesty and your willingness to speak what's truth for you. And I hope you're not going to be right, because if you are right, the next time we talk, we are in a civil war. And I hope not, because I hope I want to come back to your place. I want to have some wine with you and think about this time as a period of time, not as the beginning of the end of many cultures, which could be that could be the case, but I hope not. Huh?
I don't think it will go that way. I really don't. If I gave you that impression, but it could go that way. Is all I'm saying. And as you said, if there's any country in the world where the people could stand up and revolt, it would be here.
Yes. So as I keep an eye close on you guys, I want to see how it goes, and I might talk to you again down the line. But thank you for your contribution, and thank you for this conversation, JR. It was a pleasure to see you.
All right, same here, Davide. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.